Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, passion for excellence.
Here are today's top headlines. Nissan is miffed at Chevy's mileage claims for the Volt. Canada bemoans its Cash for Clunkers program, and in the U.S., Cash for Clunkers mania is starting to cool off. Up next, we'll be back with the news behind the headlines. This is Autoline Daily for Wednesday, August 12, 2009, and now the news. General Motors held a huge press conference yesterday where we learned more details about the General's claim that the Volt will get 230 miles per gallon in city driving. That is what the average driver will get, assuming that half the owners plug in every day and half do not. And while GM did not reveal precisely what the combined city and highway fuel economy will be, it did say it will be a triple-digit number. You know, I remember that a year ago, people on the Volt program told me they hope to get a combined fuel economy label of at least 120 miles per gallon. And Nissan seems a little bit miffed at all the attention the Volt is getting. On Twitter yesterday, Nissan tweeted that its upcoming EV, the Leaf, will get the equivalent of 367 miles per gallon, and that it will be affordable, which is a jab at the Volt's $40,000 price tag. Even so, Nissan hasn't made any announcements about how much the Leaf will cost. And you know, we're on Twitter too. You can find us at twitter.com/Autoline. There is no doubt that the U.S. Cash for Clunkers program has boosted new vehicle sales. But is the car buying bonanza just a flash in the pan? Reuters reports showroom traffic is showing signs of leveling off. One possible reason is that the original $1 billion allocated for the program created a gold rush mentality, which pushed consumers to race in to get the rebate before it was too late. Now, with another $2 billion on the way, consumers seem to have calmed down. Meanwhile, up in the Great White North, Ford of Canada's CEO, David Mondragon, says the country needs a better Cash for Clunkers program. According to Ward's, Canada's program, which is called Retire Your Ride, offers consumers only $300 for trading in a 95 or older model and buying a 2004 or newer vehicle. So far, only 11,000 clunkers have been scrapped. You know, $300 is not a lot of money, and remember, that's 300 Canadian. As part of its big media event yesterday, General Motors let reporters into its pre-production operations for the Chevrolet Volt, where they build cars exactly how they'll be made at the assembly plant. This gives workers the opportunity to train for their jobs at a very slow pace before it goes into mass production. Right now, they're building Volts at the rate of only 2 a day, but they've built up over 20 cars out of the 74 pre-production models that will be built. You know, automakers never let reporters into these operations. Clearly, GM wants to prove to the world the Volt is going into production. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation recently warned the White House that up to half of all suppliers face bankruptcy within the next few months. According to the Detroit News, the state wants $2 billion in federal aid to prevent job losses and seeing equipment sold off to foreign companies if suppliers go into Chapter 11. But last week we reported that Ron Bloom, the head of the Automotive Task Force, essentially told suppliers, you're on your own. Hey, you know those GM badges that are on the front fenders of all their vehicles? Well, they're on the way out. Coming up next, I talk to Bob Lutz about why and when they're getting rid of those badges.
Changing tires out here could be dangerous, but with these tires, I don't need to worry.
Bridgestone.
As we mentioned earlier in the show, General Motors held a day-long media event yesterday where they announced the 230 miles per gallon rating in city driving for the Volt. They let us look at most of their future product that they've got coming in the next 4 years. Unfortunately, no cameras were allowed, and they gave us access to all their top executives. In an interview I did with Bob Lutz, who's now in charge of all marketing for GM's brands, I asked him what's going to change in how they market GM's brands.
Going forward, we are not going to try to improve the GM image and spend a lot of time talking about GM and GM technology. We do in an event like this because it's shorthand. But when we address the public from here on out, we will rarely, if ever, talk about GM. It'll be Chevrolet messages, Cadillac messages, Buick messages, and GMC messages. Now, a lot of times, core elements of those messages will be the same for all four brands, but the ads will not be signed GM. They'll be signed by one of the brands.
So I asked Mr. Lutz, if the emphasis is going on to the brands and away from General Motors, what's going to happen to those little GM badges that are on the front fenders of all their vehicles?
It's probably going to gradually phase out. Yeah, it's just at the time we put it on, there was a general feeling that the power of the GM brand was more than that of the individual brands, and that putting the GM mark of excellence on the cars was going to be the rising tide that floated all boats. And it turned out, of course, came out exactly the other way, that due to the financial challenges and Chapter 11, it turns out that nearly 100% of American consumers know that GM went Chapter 11, but far less than 100% know that Chevrolet did or Cadillac did.
But then I pushed him a little bit more to explain exactly when these badges are going to be phased out.
It'll probably be progressive. It's not going to be, wholesale strip-off. And actually, if you look at some vehicles, they'll remain for the life of the vehicle because there's a molding with an indentation in it that the badge is stuck in, so you'd have to do new moldings, and we're not going to bother with that.
We'll have a lot more from GM's big press conference on the John's Journal channel on our website later today. Hey, don't forget to check out Autoline After Hours Thursday night when we're broadcasting live from the Woodward Dream Cruise, one of the greatest classic car events in the world. We'll be webcasting from the AutoZone's hobby store in Birmingham, Michigan, and we have a number of surprise guests stopping by, including performances by the Exhaust Tones, the only band in the world made up of automotive journalists. It's going to be a fun night, so check it out, y'all. And that is it for today's top news in the global automotive industry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.